just learn. It's throwing
Oh,
the deep end.
JT. Okay.
Throw you in the deep end and learn as we go.
All right, I can do that. I've done it before.
But if you have any questions, you can ask any one of us at any given point in time.
Jerry.
You've already seen this.
Yeah, how are you? He's a good one to ask,
Okay.
since he's in charge of this boat show today.
I just grinned all day long because I thought I can go to the meeting tonight and never say a word if I want to.
Hey, look, I almost thought that this was going to be next week, and I'm going to be traveling next week, and I thought,
I know.
I'm going to call in.
You're very first. No, that's your man right there. That's your man.
Well, if Wendy doesn't show up, are you going to keep time tonight, or you want me to?
Yeah, I will. That's
Okay.
fine. I don't mind doing that. So. If she doesn't show up, it would serve her right if I took her seat
Yeah, right.
and, and reclaimed my old seat.
You should just kick her out.
I really should. Get in there.
If I may, I'd like to go ahead.
Hey,
First public hearing.
Okay.
This will kind of help.
The Centerstone one.
you have a name, but
Hey, you.
Hey there.
Hello. Thank you so much. Okay.
I've never heard of this place. There's a Gist House card laying here for alcohol and drug rehab. Okay, yes, yes, yes. Okay. I just put things on. You want us to share? That's fine. We can share.
I just printed out this little one.
Okay.
E1, which is 18. Page 18.
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm Landon.
Ann Tucker? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sit by you now.
Oh, man, you're going to hate that, but that's going to be
Okay.
great for me.
All right, that's fine. No, that's all right. We don't care.
Ray Williams.
Ray, nice,
Nice
to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
Nice to meet you. Welcome to the
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Should be here.
Yeah. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, sir? I'm here at the Club Villas deal. One of the neighbors couldn't be here, and so she printed off the letter for me to give to them.
Okay.
I was going to give it to them.
Sure.
I apologize for the green ink. That's what she gives
No worries.
I'm going to give you guys a letter from one of the
Thank
neighbors
you.
in the Club Villas deal that she can't make it here tonight, so she told me.
I know Rhonda.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm tickled to be over here. Let me tell you. I am tickled.
We may have one that's not going to be here, Wendy.
No,
Oh,
it
is she
was
not?
subdivision.
Oh, sure.
Is this one about
I don't believe it.
the?
I don't believe it's Valencia, but she should.
I know there's a drug rehab card sitting over there too. I don't know what they did there. Oh, this is.
She said, our policy and drainage.
It doesn't help. I keep coming up with content. I'm trying to get a word.
No, this is a different one. She's talking
Motorcycle
about
riding.
those.
Foster.
Yeah, she's talking about those. Remember where they wanted to come to 7 and. Yep. Oh yeah, that was a kind of. Got another new person too, don't we? No, that's still.
No, we all have one new person.
Oh,
this
that's
time.
right. Oh yeah. Welcome back, Ann.
Yes.
We missed you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I'm honored to start my brand new term. Yeah, no kidding.
Gonna lay down the law this time? Jerry, you gonna lay down the law?
Whoa.
How many years we got?
We have
2?
this year and one more. And so
Okay.
next year, end of next year will be our end of our last
24 meetings.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. 24 meetings left.
Okay.
You act like you want to leave.
No.
What's the deal?
I love it. Love it. I want to do it because I love it.
How's this supposed to be packed?
Oh, the salary.
Her dad out of the hospital? Yeah, her dad was in the hospital. I think he's doing better.
She's at work.
Huh?
Wendy, she work.
She what?
Wendy's at work. Where's Brandon? Anybody heard from him?
Brandon? Hadn't heard from him. I almost didn't come due to excess cold. But I didn't.
All right, should we get started? Brandon rolls in, he rolls in.
I think we're ready. We got a quorum.
7:01 starts on.
All right, 7:01, so we'll call this meeting to order. The Conway Planning Commission makes recommendations to the city council on public hearing items. The city council will make a final decision on these items using the planning commission recommendations as a guide. Items reviewed at tonight's planning commission may be considered by the city council on January 23rd, 2018. The public hearing for reconsidered items approved by the planning commission will be held at the next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting. Items not approved by the planning commission may be appealed to the city council within 30 days after planning commission denial. If an item is appealed to the city council, a public notice sign will be placed on the property at least 7 days prior to the city council meeting, and a public notice will be placed on the city's website, www.cityofconway.org. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes from the December 18th meeting of 2017. We have those here provided by Ms. Skeeto. Any questions or comments from the?
I made a motion to approve.
There is a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any other comments or concerns? Seeing none, I'll call this to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, first item on the agenda, the item C has been stricken. Hence, there was no subdivision committee meeting tonight. So we'll move on to D1. Sorry. So let me set some ground rules here for just a second. The first speaker, 4, will have 10 minutes for each item. The second, or any subsequent speakers, 4, an argument will have 2 minutes. And then likewise, any opposition, the first speaker will have 10 minutes, or 2 minutes. 10 minutes, and then any subsequent people will have 2. Sorry. All right, sir?
Good evening,
Please state your
everybody.
name and your address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Landon Sanders, and I reside at 2355 Springcrest Street here in Conway. And I'm here today on behalf of Pennington Homes to ask for a reconsideration by the Planning Commission on the issue of the Club Villas PUD amendment. As you have seen in the write-up, there's been substantial changes since the initial request for modification of this PUD several months ago. And at the Planning Commission several months ago, we had opposition from neighbors, and since then we've gained their approval for this project. There was no opposition at the City Council level, and it actually died without a motion at the City Council level. And since then, what we went ahead and done, we have amended this plan again to make it more favorable to the neighbors and to make it something that we believe that the Planning Commission will be more favorable for. And so I'm going to ask that you guys grant our request to reconsider this at a later date And that's all I have. Now, I gave you a letter from one of the neighbors, that's Miss Rhonda Ellis. She couldn't be here tonight, and so she printed that off and asked me to bring you guys copies of that today. That's all I have, so, thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor of this motion? Anybody to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing none, I'll call it back into the committee. Guys,
It
what do
was
you,
a limited kind of group of people that were affected by this. I think the drainage thing is the biggest issue, and once Mrs. Ellis signed off on it with those conditions, as long as those conditions are met, I don't have a problem with it.
well, one of the biggest concerns we had when we denied this was drainage, but also the density, right?
Right?
And I don't see that they've addressed the density, right? There's still 7 lots here.
No, it's down to 5.
Oh, it's 5 now.
It's the one below it.
We gave you.
Gotcha.
We went from 7 to 65.
Got it. I see it now.
But before, so originally it was, refreshing our memories, originally it was approved for 3 lots in this, and then they tried to move it to 7, now to 6, and now to 5.
I would point out that the lots that they're showing now would meet R1 single-family subdivision. If you came into a green patch or somewhere around town and had R1 single-family zoning, you could build these. So I just point that out as a point of reference.
Yeah.
And so, and the road is now in the front, as I understand this.
They'll each have their own individual driveways now,
Right.
just like any other.
Development, basically.
Fair.
So,
So the real question here is really just, do we circumvent the timeline? So typically, in this case, they would have to wait for like 12 months, I think, basically a year before they could bring this back before us. What they're asking here is to waive that timeline and so that they could get back on our calendar in a shorter time span than that. And if I'm understanding the agenda right here, or the bylaws right, it requires a 2/3 vote of this board. So I think,
It come back in front of us since they didn't make any motion. It just died. I thought that year was automatically waived, is it not?
No.
Oh, okay.
I went all through this with the city attorney. We're going to try to readdress some of those rules because they don't quite all make a lot of sense in some ways. But anyway,
Okay.
the council failed to vote on it, so therefore no action was taken. And the way the rules read, basically if no action was taken, they could reapproach you to get a 2/3 vote of those present. So
Oh,
looking for 6 votes basically for approval. But anyway, through the process of the rules and regulations, you have to refer back to the ordinance, the bylaws, and 2 other ordinances. And between all of it, the city attorney has said that yes, because there was no vote taken, they could bring it back in less than, they could bring back the request. to bring
So
it
we
back.
need to do 2 things. We need to approve that it's coming back before us and then approve, or vote on whether it could be
Not
done.
just voting
Okay.
on whether they can come back effectively.
Okay.
right.
Yes, I don't see a problem with us reviewing it again. I mean, I don't know if you need a motion or not.
So the question that we really have before us tonight is whether we want to hear this again in February.
I don't have any problem with
we
it.
gotta hear it again?
Yeah,
So is
I
that
don't think,
the timeline that you're talking about? Is that shortening the timeline, is what you're requesting?
Right, so ordinarily, like, they would have to wait a whole calendar year. And so
I don't
since
see any point in
no action was
that.
taken,
That seems,
they can put this on the agenda in February.
I don't like calling people out on a little technicality like
Well,
that.
he's already been sitting on this for months and months and months and
Yeah.
trying to redo it and.
I mean, we can't action on it tonight, but, I mean, we can, with 6 votes, we can put them back on the agenda in February and then action on it
I
then.
need a motion to approve to be here next month.
That's what I
Make a motion
need.
that we be here
I'll
next
second
month.
that, yeah.
There's a motion on the floor to waive the timeline and allow them to come back in February. Has been seconded. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call this to a vote. All those in favor? Let's raise our hands because this is a 2/3 majority. All right.
We got
All those opposed?
Nay.
That's Justin.
It had to have 6. So I think 6-1.
Yeah.
6,
All right.
6 to 1, basically.
All right. Motion passes. So now he'd be back on the February agenda.
Thank you, guys.
So now it's just back on the agenda.
Yes. So now he'll be back in February. We'll talk about it again. All right, moving on. Heartland request to rezone from I-1 to MF2 to I-1 and MF2 to I-1. Do we have someone to speak to this?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Bell. I'm representing Heartland Development Company, 575 Harkrider, Conway. I'd like to refer you to a handout that I believe I left for most everybody. I didn't have quite enough for everyone, but if you guys can share and take a look at this. In addition to what you've seen in the report, I think this might help visualize what's actually going on here. Everybody's familiar with the new hill cut to realign Donnell Ridge Road and the intersection of Old Military. So in a nutshell, what happened is that a small portion of MF2 zoning on the south side of this property that you see here was left orphaned on the north side of Donnell Ridge when the right-of-way was shifted southward to meet the realigned section of Old Military. So if you look at the handout, you see 3 lots, lots D, E, and F. Lot D doesn't have anything but I-1 in it. Lots E and lots F both have a portion of MF2 and I-1. Now, the predominant zoning here is I-1, and our request is to remove the portion of MF2 that's mostly in Lot F and just a tiny portion in Lot E, remove that and just make it all I-1. So that's the basic request. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions on that?
What are you gonna do with this?
Well, we do have somebody who's interested in the property. It's going to remain I-1, and they're looking at building an office on the ridge line, which is actually the southern portion of I guess would be Lot F. So they're going to purchase this, and they'll go in front of over to the Planning Commission, Brian and everybody there, and they'll review this through development review. But I-1 is, I guess this has been zoned I-1 for a long time, and it's just, it seems appropriate to keep it I-1 and just remove this dual zoning here, so to speak, that was left because of the realignment of the road. So, yeah, that's what's happening. So,
Okay.
any questions that anybody has that I can answer?
Thanks, Matt.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor of this? Anybody in opposition? Seeing none, I'll call this into committee. Guys, what say you?
I think it makes complete sense with the surrounding area to hold this little island hostage. It doesn't fit within even for me, it doesn't make sense.
Are you making a motion?
Sure, I make a motion that we approve this request.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor to approve this rezoning. It has been seconded. I will say that I'm usually not in favor of this carte blanche, granting zonings without knowing what's going to go there definitively. We've been burnt in the past for that. But in this case, I agree with these guys. It makes sense.
Yeah.
This is really not precedent setting. So if there's no other discussion, I will call this to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
I just don't like it when it's at 3, you know, when it's like the worst possible. This is like the least.
Yeah. All right, E2, Palladino requests for conditional use permit to allow max 24 units per acre in C3. Anybody speak on behalf? Here he comes. How are you, sir?
Hello, my name is David White. I work for Tyler Group at 240 Skyline here in Conway, and as we were approached by Mr. Palladino to try to find something that would be, he wanted to put duplexes on this, and we just couldn't fit that in there, and this was kind of layout here is about all we could find that was we could fit in on this site. So we're asking for a conditional use permit. 10 units is and a 3-story building is what we're looking at here. If there's any questions or anything.
What type of units are you going to put there? Are these just 1 to 4 families and?
Yes, ma'am. It's just kind of, multifamily. I think 975 square foot each is kind of what we've got on our little plan here. The problem is the lot is too narrow to really do any kind of commercial development on.
Is your neighbor there to the right, is that gonna be one out there, is that a car lot or wherever they have there?
They build street rods and custom cars next to it.
Okay, yeah.
We're looking at 3-story, 10-unit building structures?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It would, in order to get the 10 units on the site, it would have to be 3 stories. And of course, the top story wouldn't take up the full building. It'd be.
Any other questions?
Was there anybody else going to speak on it?
The placement of these 1 to 4 families kind of bothers me in the middle of all the commercial property here. The in and outs off of Oak.
What's currently there now?
It's an empty lot right now.
Okay, because I drove by it and I couldn't remember which one. But it's right next to the one with the, where you fix up the old cars and stuff like that? Yeah, okay. That's what I was thinking of. I'm seeing it. Pretty narrow.
I can't picture it.
Have we called this back in? Yeah.
No, it's still asking question time. So just for, I don't know, curious minds, what tempted you to go the route of a residential area here in this lot instead of the more commercial usage, even say a light office, quiet office, light commercial type usage that you would typically see through the Oak Street corridor?
Yes, sir. This is just what our client approached us. He originally wanted duplexes on the site, and there was just no way to fit duplexes on the site because of the driveway can only be 150 feet for the firemen. But he wanted this on the site, and he said that the owner had some offers for the site, but they were nowhere close to what he's offering for the site and what it's actually assessed at. And this gets him close to that value. for the
Is
site.
he getting a lot of, say, interest from prospective tenants?
That's just neighbors is all he's getting,
Okay.
yeah.
From neighbors of this
residential or-
lot?
Yes, ma'am, on the east and the west side. It's my understanding.
So are they interested in just having some development go in, or are they looking at residential, or are they specific?
They're looking at obtaining this too, so they would have more space for
Okay,
their
so
office or.
They're trying to buy it, not necessarily
Yeah,
care about.
I was more asking around, is he being approached by prospective tenants of the family residences?
No, sir, that's still way off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no further questions for him.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else to speak in favor of this? Anybody to speak in opposition?
My name's Rick Newman. I own a business next door. Been there 30 years,
Can we have your address, please?
1850 East Oak Street.
Thank you.
I don't have objections to them wanting to build apartments next door, but I don't believe it's a good fit. I don't believe there's enough room. You build 10 apartments, that's 20 cars. There's hardly enough room on that lot to park 20 cars without building apartments on it. The apartments will be close to the shop. My shop makes lots of noise. I work that shop day and night both. Tenants won't be happy with the noise of the shop. There's a lot of trees running up and down the property line that will surely die with all the roots being disturbed. I ask if they do approve to have the apartments built, that developers remove all the trees on the property lines at their expense so that when they die, I don't have to do it at my expense. And I request that they put up a large fence to keep the noise from my shop bothering their tenants to where we have conflicts between the two of us because of the noise. I've been there 30 years, and I work day and night there. Sometimes we're behind schedule. We make a lot of noise cutting and grinding cars, and I just don't believe it's a good fit. I know the people that own the lot, they've been trying to sell it for 30 years. I'm sure they would love to sell the lot, but I don't believe it's a good fit with the, 10 units. That's at least 20 cars. With the green spaces and setback laws and rules, I just don't see how it fits. That's what I say. And like I said, I don't have objection to them wanting to develop the land and wanting to build apartments, but I just don't think it's a good fit. And if y'all do approve it, I think that there should be a requirement of a fence between my shop and their apartments to keep me from being a nuisance to them and them being a nuisance to me. And I think that they should have to take out the trees so I don't have to take them out when they die, because they will surely die. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else to speak in opposition? Seeing none, let's call this back into.
Question for Mr. White again. Mr. White, you said the owner has received requests, but more for residential than commercial? What were you saying about that?
I guess Mr. Palladino, looking about this property, he is the one that has approached us about putting residential on the property. Yes.
Okay, so
He was saying that they've been approached by other businesses that surround
I
them
got you, okay.
to buy it, but they haven't come to the price.
Okay, so the price point for residential is exceeding what your offers have been for the other stuff? Okay, got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Got
Yes,
it,
ma'am.
okay. Thank you.
So it's not often that we get a request for residential on Oak Street, and I'm not sure that I've ever even considered that would have been a possibility. I think that's why I'm perplexed by this one tonight. So I have two major concerns. One, having residential on Oak Street with the obvious traffic issues and noise issues and all the commercial surroundings. I'm not sure that, I could be wrong, could be proved wrong, that it would draw actual applicants and occupancy that would sustain it for a long-term period. So I don't want to get to a point where it would then cause further decay to happen on Oak Street. The second concern I have would be, in order to maximize or to meet the requested price of whatever is happening, he's trying to create a density that is stretching the limits of the size and the depth and the requirements of the property. So I'm the density guy on the committee. I'm always concerned when we try to get too dense into a neighborhood. So those are my concerns for the general public.
Placement, I guess. Like, Oak Street doesn't bother me necessarily if it's placed right, but if you look at that area, it's just one. I hate going. I mean, I go Stephen Morgan to avoid going. That, you know, I will leave church and go all the way down and go to avoid that area. It just doesn't seem like it would. I guess it, and this is totally not our business, I guess, but it makes me fearful for parents who have a kid that runs, you know, in the parking lot and runs out. There's no buffer there. I mean, it just makes me nervous that the placement doesn't seem like a good place for a 10-unit apartment.
So you're avoiding it because of the traffic issues, or just the concerns for
the traffic, the neighboring? I mean, the traffic is my main concern probably, but there's nothing in that a quarter-mile radius that seems like it would fit in that area to me. Other than that, then it's the land there, other than having a piece of land there. And there's nothing in that area to me that seems like, oh, it would be a good point to put 10 apartments here. Now, let me say that, saying there's been other places around the city that I'm like, oh, they're putting apartments there? Okay, it fits after it's there. So I could, like he said, be wrong, but it doesn't.
Well, I share the same concerns. It doesn't look like a good fit for that area, for the density, for it being a tenant building, a family building rather than commercial. It just doesn't flow for that street.
It's hard for me to imagine there's not a commercial, somebody that would want to come in and put a business in there. Because, I mean, that area over there is really kind of, they've got a lot of new businesses coming in over there, like restaurants and stuff like that, moving out that way too. So I'd hate to have to put.
This is gonna be hard for me to imagine that with all them apartments around there, that people are gonna choose to live next to his shop with them working over there.
Is that in a flood zone?
It should say over. No, it's not.
It's not. It says not. Okay. Sorry, I'm new. But
So-
again, I just don't see that as a good fit for that area.
So, someone have a. Yep, I will. So seeing as all motions must be made in the positive, and this is a conditional use permit, I'm going to suggest some recommended conditions that if this were to have, or were to pass, these are conditions that would help mitigate some of the concerns that we have moving forward. So there are three recommended conditions that the staff has provided with us. The first one being that the development is limited to 10 residential units maximum. The second one is duplexes and triplexes shall not be allowed. 3 is planning shall be required, additional right-of-way easements, et cetera, as required by the subdivision ordinance shall be dedicated and constructed. I'm going to add a fourth one in there as part of my proposal, which includes double slatted privacy fence around the exterior of the property so that the residents will be buffered from any noise pollution from the surrounding businesses that would adjoin the property.
What about the tree issue?
Can we relegate tree issues? I mean, I know we required it in the past for planting trees, but I'm not sure that we can require them to take down trees, can we?
It's a conditional use, I mean.
Okay.
Part of the project, if it makes sense, if it's they're gonna die, that makes sense. If it were to be approved and all that, as part of development review, we would require them to plant new trees, which would be properly located. So it might make just as much sense to take out the old ones that would probably not handle the lack of storm or water and all that
Okay.
root disturbance and all that kind of thing, and the new trees instead. So,
And those are
yeah,
the,
you can do that.
okay, so we'll add a fifth one, a fifth condition, which is to say that the trees that
On the property line.
on the property line, on the north property line, be removed due to security and sustainability concerns that will then be replaced during the development review as stated in condition number 3. And those will be my suggested 5 conditions.
Second.
All right. We have a motion. It is to approve this with the following conditions. The development is limited to 10 residential units maximum. The duplexes and triplexes shall not be allowed. Platting shall be required. Additional right-of-way easements, et cetera, as required by the subdivision ordinance shall be dedicated and constructed. Privacy fence double slatted around the perimeter of the development, and removal of trees on the property line on the north side.
Correct.
And to be replaced by whatever development review says. Has been seconded. Any further discussion?
The noise, I mean, are we thinking that the privacy fence is gonna help with the noise because it's 3-story, it's gonna be loud. It's gonna cause an issue, it could cause issues with him.
But for 3-story properties, there's not anything that I can fathom that wouldn't then become an eyesore to cut down on any noise pollution that high up.
Right, I don't either. That was my only other concern.
It just doesn't fit here.
Just doesn't fit.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Has been seconded. We've addressed the conditions. I'm going to call this to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion fails. All right, moving on. City of Hope outreach request to rezone from C3 to PUD. Mr. Fletcher.
How you guys doing today?
Welcome
Tonight?
back.
Good to see you. My name is Philip Fletcher. I'm the founder and executive director for the City of Hope Outreach. Our office address is 608 East Robbins, and I live at 2652 Bruce Street. Here in Conway, I'm here to present, to get a PUD, provide a solution for something that's going on in our city. 3 stories. I had a friend, Gary Harrison, who lived in the Oakwood Trailer Park. I know him for 10 years now. I met him when I first started out in the Oakwood Trailer Park back in 2007. This time, actually tonight, January 16th, out in the Oakwood Trailer Park, he died in a fire. Him and his roommate in the trailer were trying to stay warm. They had portable heaters. The trailers out there are very old, and as a result, they died in a fire that night. Second, a young girl named Savannah. At the time I met her, she was 8 years old. I met her at the restaurant, Mr. Stir Fry, which is a new restaurant now on Harkrider. Her mom, and 2 other individuals, they were all homeless. There's a picture that I have that a staff member made of me and her that was painted, and they had no place to go. So we helped them get on a bus back to Georgia, where her mom had some family so they could get back on their feet again. Third story I want to tell you is about the approximately 200 homeless individuals that are approximated in our city and county. Many of those will be staying tonight and have been staying at the warming center at the Ministry Center right down the street. They are staying there because it's god-awful cold right now. They're staying there because places like the Bethlehem House, My Hope Home, Last Chance, were always at capacity. And without the warming center, they would have no place to go and would probably more than likely be out in god-awful cold weather tonight. And then when this is over, those individuals, those men, women, children, will once again be back on the street. And so while the warming center was a temporary solution, it's not a permanent solution. While I wish I could have, and we could have provided a place for Savannah and her mom, we could not. And I wish that Gary was still with me today so that we could sit and talk poetry and have good catfish at Sharks now instead of the Catfish House, but that's not the case. I tell all those stories because Coho, for the last 10 years, and what we're seeking today is seek a manner of justice for the poor and homeless in our city, because they're not getting the adequate support that they need so that they can flourish as human beings. I'm here to be a voice for them so that there can be housing for the homeless, to support adequate housing for those that are in low income, and diminish stereotypes about the poor and the homeless. And so what we're proposing to you today is what you have in your handouts is a creation of a 10-home tiny home community, mixed income, in which 60% of those homes would go to those who are immediately homeless. Those homeless individuals or families. 20% will go to veterans. I'm a veteran of 7 years. And then 20% will go to those that are middle income. The reason that we're doing this is that the homeless need a place to stay. We firmly believe that in order for a person to get stable, in order for a person to get employment, in order for a person to get the adequate support services that they need a place to stay. You have to be stable. And that once you're able to have a place to stay, once you're able to go and have a shower, once you're able to have a place to eat, once you're able to have a place to put your head, then all these other things that we say, why can't they do that? And why can't they do this? Then they can be appropriately supported. And we'll have case management services to help them. Secondly, we're providing this as a mixed income approach because we don't want to create a ghetto situation in which there's nothing but homeless people. All right. I've learned in the last couple of years there is this apprehension, there is this stereotype about having all these homeless people in one area together. So my solution is, in learning about Conway and learning about the citizens and learning about this city, is that, okay, fine, let us create a neighborhood then. Let's move away from the traditional 20th century shelter approach. Let's diminish stereotypes about the homeless and the poor. Then let's live together. Let's develop relationships together. Let us do things together in order that we can support one another. And so that is the reason for the 20% veterans and the 20% middle income persons. And in your packet, you'll see that it will be 5 one-bedrooms and 5 two-bedrooms. The one-bedrooms are 480 square feet. The two-bedrooms are 600 square feet. The one-bedrooms are anticipated for an individual, but also, if need be, a parent and his or her child. The family 2 bedrooms will be for families, husband, wife, and children as well. There will also be a clubhouse that will be extended off of our existing Hope Home that we have for men, so that those families that are in the tiny homes, they have a place to wash their clothes, have a meeting place where we can have community meetings and have an opportunity for people to develop relationships. One of the things we say at Coho is that great things happen around food. Am I right? Yes. Great things happen around food, great discussions, and so that would be a reason for that. And so this has happened in other areas. Detroit is doing this right now. An entire neighborhood of tiny houses is under construction. And the goal for them is giving homeless and low-income persons the opportunity to own a house. It's a local nonprofit. It's leading this project to build 25 tiny houses, and it's having a mixed income setup as well. And so this is also being done in Austin, Texas. It's being done in Arizona. It's being done in Portland, Oregon as well. And so for us in Conway, Arkansas, we have models that we can look at. I have my board members right now looking at the ordinances that they have created in these other cities that we can bring here as a model as well to provide a solution for the homeless and the low income in our city. And so in conclusion, I would ask us all to have an imagination. I ask us all to have an imagination in which we can improve and greatly increase the name of Conway. We do a lot of things for the middle income and upper income of our city. It's time for us to push forward and do something substantive and powerful and lasting for those who are low income and homeless in our city. And so I would ask you to have an imagination where we can rebuild ruins. We want to use the land that's next to us and rebuild that ruin. Let's have an imagination in which we can raise the foundation of other generations that's going to come after us once we leave the city or once we pass away and pass this on to our children and our children's children. Let's be people who can imagine that we're repairing the breach and diminishing the stereotypes of what it is to be homeless and what it is to be low income. Let's improve relationships between people in our city, and let's be known as people who have the glory of God and His blessings upon us. And so with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
So there are percentages that you said they were set aside for low-income veterans,
Yeah.
et cetera. How does that remain in compliance with the Fair Housing Act?
Well, right now, based off of my case management approach, we are applying for what is called a Community Housing Development Organization grant through the state of Arkansas. And part of their requirements is that more than 50% of the housing has to go towards low-income persons. And so we have obviously pushed it to 60%. Also, like I said in my opening comments, we didn't want to have an approach in which it's all low income. So you can't restrict any housing to a specific economic situation, but you can make it in a situation in which you have a designated amount of numbers. And so for funding that we're getting from, seeking from the Community Housing Development Organization, they're asking that a certain amount of houses be set aside for this income group. And so we pushed it to 60%, but also with veterans. Many veterans qualify for low income as well based off of the disability that they receive or their retirement that they receive. That pushes it up to 80%. But with the middle income, those who are just you, sir, that provides the opportunity so there is not a 100% what we call ghetto approach.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And just so I'm clear, this isn't meant to be, or maybe it is, and correct me if I'm wrong. So this isn't meant to be transitional housing. This is meant for more medium-term housing. Am I understanding
Yeah,
that
so
correctly?
for those that are homeless, and this is based off our approach that we do at our Hope Home. The men at our Hope Home right now, they can stay from 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
And when they come in, they have 30 days to get settled. We have found many people that come off the streets, they need that opportunity just to get acclimated to their new environment. And so that same situation will be provided for these families or individuals as well. You get 30 days to get settled. We'll have a case manager that then will assist them to get employment, because our goal is, and we believe that work affirms the dignity and worth of people, that when people work, they're more inclined to do other things for other people. And so day 31, somebody will be working with them to find employment. Once they find employment, then a percentage of what they earn will go towards their rent. So it'll be rental housing. And then as they earn more money, then obviously their rent will increase. Be a percentage for those that are veterans. And then for those who are middle income, we'll be determining a fair market rent, taking into consideration this is a tiny home as well, so that they'll be paying a rent every month. So everybody will be contributing. Everybody will be offering something. And so for those that are homeless, we're going to give them the option to stay up to 2 years. Okay. And then our goal is for you to move from this tiny house to something larger. We want to see people working with them, that they make their choices, sitting with them. You know, you let us know, what is it that you want? What are your goals? What is your future? And we want to help you meet those. And so by adding that 2 years, it gives puts you a little bit of skin in the game, you know? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut off. I hope you got what you needed from him. But
Yes.
I wanted to ask, so
Yes, ma'am.
it is in kind of still equivalent to kind of like a facility. So it will be managed, you'll have a case manager on site for the ones that are in transition, and they can stay up to 2 years without meeting that income requirement because they're considered to be homeless? Is that the case?
Well, under the federal guidelines for homelessness, they will not be considered homeless
Well, they won't be homeless.
because right, that's the goal. They will each have their own address.
Yeah, that's true.
The goal is to reduce homelessness.
Reduce homelessness,
Yes,
but
ma'am.
income is not a factor for them until after the 2-year time frame is met.
Income is going to be a factor day 31.
Day 31,
Yes.
okay. All right,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, we firmly believe 3 things: that people should have a place to live, people should be able to work, and people should be able to eat.
Okay. What was the 12 to 18 that you referenced?
That's in regards to our Hope Home for our men. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if you decide that the rent, the highest rent that will be due on a one-bedroom is $500 a month, if that person has been there for over 2 years and is able to pay the $500 a month, can they stay?
We'll consider that. My goal is to,
I was just curious.
this is, so part of this going back is a pilot. This is a pilot program. And so just like our Hope Home, we had to do some trial and error without, obviously, you're not going to be put out because of our trial and error, us figuring out based off of, overhead and things like that, what's going to be reasonable, but also looking at everybody's situation is different. And so if this individual, meets the $500 and for whatever reason, they just love staying in a tiny home,
I think
then
it'd be great.
Then fine. I'll just have to come back to y'all with to build 20 more, Yes, ma'am.
So once they get employed, would they maybe qualify for other assistance, or would housing assistance be made available to?
Yes, ma'am.
Coho for their for their rental expenses?
Well, so if an individual, since with our case manager, we will work with that individual to get any services that they need. Okay, and so obviously, if it is some type of like with CAPCA provides, rental assistance and things like that, or any of those other services, we're going to connect them with those individuals to help that out. We want to do everything possible, and I said this, so this person, this family can flourish as a human being, and accessing every service available so that can happen. And so part of the issue is a lot of these individuals, because they don't have an address. If you don't have an address,
Can't get
it's
services.
difficult to get services. It's difficult to get a job.
Yep.
If you don't have an address and a phone,
Yep.
it's call me back. And we have a lot of people who give labor finders our office phone number. If we're closed, and they've missed a call, that's hard. And so having their own address gives them that stability to then walk in, fill in an application at our main office with our computers, or going to wherever in order that they can continue to move forward.
Any other questions?
Are you doing sidewalks on the interior stuff, or y'all gonna ask for that cash in lieu?
Okay. He's my technical.
Coming up.
My only question is,
Yes, sir.
so you obviously decided on this density for a reason, and I get that these are tiny homes, but smaller homes. And was there a reason you decided on this many?
10?
Yeah.
Actually, I was looking like at 15, 20, but Rick looked at the space and was like, no, that's not going to fit. And then I am a slow growth kind of guy. I want to start small. And so 10, seeing how this would go first, I figured was a safe yet risky number at the same time. But also choosing tiny homes. I'll admit it's the popular thing right now. You look on HGTV and all that stuff. That's the thing. And so one part of it is utility. Another part of it is getting with the zeitgeist of the spirit of the age right now. And a lot of people are responding to that. And so just being wise with what's popular at one level, but also what I think is going to be a good first trial run for not just us, but I think our city as well.
Thank you.
All righty.
I'll speak in favor. My name is Rick Sowell, Sowell Architects. We are serving as the architect for this particular project. Mr. Fletcher called me several months ago and wanted me to work with him on designing some homes. And let me point out that, and these are referred to as tiny homes, and I watch the HGTV show as well. Some of those homes are so tiny that you have trouble getting around inside of them. Whereas tiny homes are described as homes that are less than 1,000 square feet, these are not the size homes that you see on HGTV. These are large enough that you can live comfortably, although they're very efficient, let's put it that way. But there's room to move around, and if you look at those floor plans, you'll see that there's adequate space to raise a family. You can sit in a chair and watch a TV across the room, and you can prepare a meal in your smaller kitchen over here, bedroom in the back, and so there's adequate space to be able to live and live comfortably here. Some of those homes on TV are 200 and 300 square feet, and we're looking at closer to 500 and over 600 square feet here. So I want to make that clear. And let me state also that these are real homes. These are not mobile homes. These are not portable homes. These are constructed with concrete foundations and wooden studs. And just like your home that you live in right now, it's going to have wood studs, sheetrock on both sides. It's going to have wood trusses. The homes are small, yes, and they're very simple. We do think that, and this was a request from Mr. Fletcher, that they be attractive. If you guys have ever gone through Chris Thornton's subdivision over here by Carl Stewart Middle School, this little Stonebrook Cove, we do that one also. I see this as sort of a small version of that particular subdivision. You take some similar plans, but they're all very simple and straightforward, and yet you can do a little massaging on them and change some materials and some colors, and you can end up with a really attractive subdivision. And it will feel like a subdivision. It's not going to feel like another mobile home park. It is a popular thing in our country right now. There's a lot of urban-type developments going on where there are homes that are sort of situated around a courtyard. They face each other rather than facing a street with a single driveway to each one. These homes are very similar to that. They create a sense of community. Every home has a front porch. People will be sitting on the front porch. People will be visiting with each other. And so I think it's going to be a really nice environment for these folks. And I do believe that there'll be a sense of pride that's created in each of these homes, and the occupants will feel like they actually are living in a nice home in a nice neighborhood, in which they are. And Mr. Fletcher will have a crew that will maintain the grounds, and everything will be manicured, and it will look good at all times. I'll go back to the sidewalk question. Right now, what you're seeing on your plan is sort of what we're proposing. Now, there has been a change. We met with all of the city departments recently, and I think Mr. Patrick here has maybe distributed a new site plan to you guys. Each home has its own parking space. It's kind of right in front of the home or right adjacent to the home. And so what we don't have at this point are sidewalks that actually run the perimeter of that space. It'll be like a little cul-de-sac that goes in and comes back out with a parking space in front of each home. If you guys require it, we could certainly add the sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like sidewalks or cash in lieu would make sense here. You know, I think you talked about in here about East Robinson eventually being possibly widened or improved.
Typically, the city engineer says if there's a no ditch street, we better get the money now. When we improve the road, then we do the sidewalks, we'll have to tear them up.
And that would really just require them paying for the cash in lieu on East Robbins, not the whole
That's correct.
interior,
Yeah.
which would be a lot cheaper. That'd be great.
Yes, and we did discuss this is not a city street, this is not a city cul-de-sac,
Good.
and so that's why we're not talking sidewalks. But, yeah, we did discuss the sidewalks along Robbins Street, and we want to participate in the drainage issues and the redevelopment of this area.
Yeah, that whole area needs help.
It does, I agree. If you have any questions about the design or the intent or anything else, be happy to answer that. Somebody asked the number of homes. I think that was you, Mr. Brown, asked about the number of homes, how we arrived at that number.
No, it's me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Wright. Yeah, Philip wanted to put a lot of homes in there, and I originally tried to get 15 in there. I felt like it was really important that these homes not be put so closely together. I didn't want people being able to reach out and touch the adjacent house. And I think it's a step beyond your typical trailer park, if you will, and homes are not just piled in there together as close as they can get them. We left 15 feet at least between the homes, and so to make it a comfortable environment, and 10 was about the max that we could get in here. And so that was, the site sort of dictated that, along with the concept of a private residence.
Like by Carl Stewart, that neighborhood you were speaking of, that's right by Carl Stewart. I mean, those houses are, I mean, you can literally touch.
They are very close together. There's a 5-foot by city ordinance, there's a 5-foot setback on each one, so those homes could be as close as 10 feet. I think we've got them more like 7 feet on the sides.
Okay.
So I think they're about 14 feet apart, but yeah, they're close. And these will be approximately the same. If those are 14, these are 15.
Okay.
Are these all handicap accessible?
They will be, yes. Now, we will not make all of the restrooms a full handicap restroom with the 5-foot wheelchair turnaround and all, but we're going to designate at least one, I think, for that purpose, and maybe 2. But they will be handicap accessible, 3-foot doors. We'll be able to get into each and every home.
The rails and all that sort of
Yes.
stuff?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn that mic.
That's a good question. I guess that's what.
I'm Mark Cooper, recently retired from UCA, the College of Education. I didn't come here to really.
Can you state your address for us?
Yes, 37 White Oak,
Thank you.
Conway. Thank you. Really didn't anticipate coming to say anything. I was really interested in Coho. I know more about Soul Food Cafe. Mr. Fletcher made reference to our imaginations, and my imagination is a bit restricted. My devotion has been to kids from the Kipsongo slum in Kitale, Kenya, where my son introduced mom and pop to those kids back in 2008. We've devoted a lot of time. My imagination, as I said, has been restricted. I want it to be broadened, and that's why I came today. I want to learn more about Coho. I want to learn more about Soul Food. I want to be a part of it. And I sit here and recognize the fact that it sounds like a no-brainer. It's an easy market. And so I know that I'm not convincing you of anything that you probably haven't already been convinced of. He's done that job. Yet I still want to go on record to say that I believe very strongly in what's been proposed. And I just want to be a part of it. And this is my first step. And I'm excited. I'm especially excited about the fact that there will be kids who are also involved in these family units. And that's where I fit. That's where my profession as a counselor, as an educator, fit. I work with as a mental health consultant with CAPA for many, many, many years. And so I'm just pleased to be here. I'm honored to represent what you've represented and hope to become more involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray.
Come on down. Welcome back.
Rick Harvey, thank you. 168 Sunshine Farms Road, Bigelow, Arkansas, Director of Soul Food Cafe Mission. And I want to say that I believe that Philip Fletcher's got a great idea here. I think we have got a very innovative and creative idea that is actually doable to a very old problem that it seems like we don't have a lot of solutions to. To be able to take varied backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and integrate them together is a very unique concept, at least to our area here in Conway. And this could be the great opportunity for the city of Conway to use this and say, hey, this would work. And if we could give him the backing that he needed to really get this going. Think about this just for a minute. Is there anybody in the city of Conway that would be better to lead this project than Philip Fletcher? Think about it. Did you watch TV when we were doing the mayor candidates? And who was the person that was up there with the mayors or prospective mayors talking to them? He was on television here in Conway, so he knows about the upper socioeconomic class. But guess what? It wasn't but just about a week ago that neighborhood that he is right there by City of Hope Outreach ended up having busted water lines. And who was it that went to them and supplied them with water? It was Philip Fletcher. So I can't think of a better person to actually do this. I think the idea is sound, and Soul Food Cafe Mission backs it 100%. I hope you will too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
JJ Whitney, 2945 St. Charles Drive. I serve as a chaplain at Hendrix College. I'm a United Methodist pastor, and I'm supporting Mr. Fletcher's work. I think that Conway residents are really going to get behind this project. We all know about tiny homes, but I think it's a great idea for us to fundraise according to our interest, right? So all the churches can get together and fundraise for the home. They're about $40,000 to $50,000. I think that's right. And, you know, we raise that money all the time to go on mission trips to Kenya, to go to South Africa. And why not do something that's going to be a permanent place in our community that really helps our neighbors? So I'm helping Phil kind of get connected to some places in Conway to do that fundraising for interest groups to get together. What if all of the colleges got together and did the City of Colleges home in the Hope Village? So I think that Conway will really support this endeavor. Thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor of this?
She's raising her hand.
My name is Jalisha Vandiver, 531B Center Street. I'm a retired Conway teacher, and this project, Hope Village, is one that I'm supporting both financially and also with helping to write grants to raise the funding for it. I've lived in Conway about 12 years, and it's the most interesting place I've ever lived. It's a city I see that's on the cutting edge in a lot of ways. I mean, we're like the city of Arkansas that has roundabouts. We have the bike sharing. We're the city of colleges. And I think it'd be awesome if we became known as a city in our state of tiny villages. And in working toward the on the grants for this project, looking around the country, it's not just in Detroit. There are a lot of cities and a lot of states around the country that are doing similar things to address homelessness. I believe it's Salt Lake City that's doing one for veterans. So this is something that's already happening all across the country, but not yet here in Arkansas. So we could be a city that leads the way in our state in addressing homelessness in this really unique manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor?
How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
My name is Derek Marshall, and I live at 425A Helen Street in Conway. And I'm the director for the Hope Home, the City of Hope Outreach. And I house 6 homeless men at a time that we work with them, helping them, encouraging them, building them up to be able to re-enter in society with jobs and eventually go on to get their own places and things like that. So just a project like this with the Hope Village, I really think it's gonna be a great investment in the Conway.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else speak in favor? Seeing none. Anybody just opposed? I don't think there is anybody else. Call us back into commission. Commissioners, what say you?
I love it. I wish we had 20 of them around town. I think it's the perfect place. I think it's the perfect idea. I love it. I'm behind it.
Yeah. And I want to state for the record, for the 2 people maybe watching us on TV right now, or when the paper gets the feedback, by my rough calculations, if this houses just the minimum occupancy, there are 200 homeless people in the city and the county. This project will solve roughly 5 to 7.5% of the city's homeless population. I think that that is a tremendous first step when the city has been rather stubborn-headedly dealing with this issue or ignoring this issue for many, many years. So I commend you. I hope this sells through with no issue. I fully support it, as I'm sure the rest do as well.
I see a lot of support, but
I'd like, to- if nobody else has a problem, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I think we're ready.
there's the motion to approve the City of Hope outreach to rezone from C3 to PUD. It has been seconded. Any other discussion?
There's 5 staff recommend.
Oh, yeah.
I was getting to that. There are 5 staff recommended conditions. Would we like to address those? Before I call the question.
Time out, I saw
Amend
4.
Yeah, I only see 4.
Am I missing one?
No, this is 4. I said 5.
Oh, okay.
I will amend my motion to approve to include the 4 suggested
Who seconded it?
conditions.
Brooks. Yeah.
You accept her friendly amendment? All right. There's a motion on the floor to approve the City of Hope outreach to rezone from C3 to PUD with the 4 staff suggested conditions. PUD shall generally be developed as shown on the submitted site plan and building perspectives. Minor modifications of the submitted plan shall be allowed for technical reasons. However, the density and intent of the site plan shall be followed. The plans may be revised to reflect right-of-way and dedication easements, fire access, etc. The Director of Planning may approve necessary modifications. A lot merger shall be required. Any additional right-of-way, sidewalks, etc., as required by the subdivision ordinance, shall be dedicated and constructed. Right-of-way per the master street plan along East Robbins shall be dedicated as part of the merger process. Setbacks, utility, pedestrian easements, public right-of-way, etc., shall be defined as the final development plan, plat, and PUD documents. A sidewalk in lieu may be paid instead of constructing a sidewalk along East Robbins. And that has been seconded. Any discussion? All right, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Mr. Fletcher, if there's anything that we can do to help you get this through, you just give us a call.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you want to take back your duty?
No, I'm really psyched about the timing. Oh,
That duty.
yes, that duty.
Is there any other
Mr.
business?
Chairman, if there's no further business, then I make a motion to adjourn. Heck yeah.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn.
I second.
There is a second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Carries.
Carries. We are adjourned.
I don't think there's 20 of these villages. I always said that if I ever won the lottery, that's what I